got the opportunity to be in such a great district. So my expectations when I started this internship. As a French student teacher, I'm sure it's a little weird if you have a high school student coming to a high school to student teach. It's unthought of, because normally they have college students do this, and even then they're looked down upon, and they're seen as someone like, oh, you don't belong here, we don't want you here. So I guess I was a little apprehensive when I started this, because I wasn't sure how students would look at me in that respect. But I have to say, again, they're really nice kids, so I got the best out of it. I was surprised that they really loved it when I came to class, because I would teach sometimes, and sometimes it was just such a great atmosphere, and they were so appreciative. I loved it. So I expected to observe different teaching styles. That's why I had 5 mentors, which is a lot. And I wanted to see what kind of different teaching would be incorporated into every lesson. And I wanted to set up lesson plans in accordance with the mentors, which they were really great about, because the fact is that I came every Wednesday, which messed up their schedule a lot. Some of them would have quizzes or tests on those days, and they couldn't because I was coming. And the one or 2 days that they still had tests, they told me, we're really sorry that we have a test today, but we couldn't do anything else, because sometimes the schedules got pushed back if there was no school, or if there was a snow day, or just different things. And teach lessons, that I was really excited about. I really wanted to focus on vocabulary, because I realized during the course of how much time I've been learning French that I sort of lacked in vocabulary. Like I would lie down in my room and I would look at the objects in my room and I could tell myself, wow, I don't know what the name of that is. I don't know what the name of that is. And it really frustrated me, because I really wanted to know the name of everything, because language has always been a passion of mine. And the one thing that I wanted to do was only in French teaching lessons, because I feel like if you teach a lesson in French, the more you utilize French in the classroom, the more the students will become familiar with it, because the more you interact, the better. And I wanted to observe classes in a language other than French, which actually one of my mentors suggested. Didn't have the chance to do that. It turns out that the 6 months that I spent there weren't enough, 6 or 8, I'm not even sure anymore, weren't enough for me to set aside time to go into an Italian class or a Spanish class to learn, because I really just wanted to get the experience of what it is to teach a language, no matter what language it was in. So here's my schedule. I started off in Pascack Hills, which is from periods 1 to 4. Period 5 was my travel time, which my mom devoted. She took time out of her lunch to drive me from those 2 places. And oh, by the way, my commute was simple. My mom just took me with her. And I taught French 2, Honors French 2, AP French 5, only 2 lessons, because the teacher told me, I really want to focus on the AP at this time. And after the AP, he told me, do whatever you want, I don't care. So for French 3 and French 4, seems like I was there at the same time. I wasn't. I was going to switch the 2 like every other week, have it, but it didn't work out that way, because just a lot of different things. So I just stayed with Madame de Judice and Honors French 2. I taught, and I'll tell you about my lesson plans right now. My lesson plans, the games that I played, I really enjoyed these games. One of the games was charades. I got the idea off of a website, and I kind of changed it around and made it my own. And what I had was, separated the classroom into 2 teams, took 1 person from each team and had them seated right here in 2 desks, and their backs facing the board. And I would write a word on the whiteboard, and the people in the teams would have to try and act out what that word was. And sometimes it was really difficult, because I wrote down, I don't know, a genre of film, and they're like, how do we do a genre of film? And so I had to give them little hints for that to work out, but it was really fun, because you could see these 2 students struggling to understand what the other students were trying to portray to them, and it wasn't really funny to watch them struggle. It was great that they really wanted to learn something from it. It was great that the more you struggle, the better you will get anywhere in life, I think. And the vocabulary definitely improved with them trying to think about it all the time. And another game I played was Jeopardy, which is what it sounds like. On the whiteboard, I wrote down 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800 points. And I had students choose from, a list of vocabulary, tense changes, and anything else that I was reviewing in the chapter. And they would get to choose which box they liked, and it would enable them to just, again, it was a good review for them. And a game that I played was Hot Potato. That's a link, and it's not just there for fun. So let me explain to you how this worked. I had a PowerPoint up for the students on the whiteboard, and I threw one of my stuffed animals to them, and again, it was in two teams. One of those students had to answer the question on the board, and I'll show you the PowerPoint just now. And the fun part about it was that you got to throw the stuffed animal to the other team without anybody knowing exactly who was going to answer. So that was fun because they were just throwing around the stuffed animal, and they're like, I want to get it now. It's like a bouquet of roses. And so it was always fun because they definitely learned a lot because it's it's an interactive activity. Here, all my PowerPoints are in French. It's okay, don't worry about it. So, passport, I showed them a picture of a passport. They're lucky that it's the same word in French. So, they had un passeport, and if they had that correct, they would get 4 points added on to their basic grade tally. And I had a bunch of these, and to most of us, this would be like, what is this, and why is that on top of it? But if it's related to the vocabulary, the students really understand what it is, because it's a room with a non-smoking sign on it. So it's a non-smoking room. And they were able to get that really quickly. Une chambre non fumeur. And I had that a lot for these. And also another thing I had was write all the forms of the verb appeler in the present. Sometimes students know phrases like je ne sais pas, because they're taught those in the beginning, which means I don't know. But they don't really know what they're talking about in the middle. Like, they don't know what verbs are conjugating. So when you do something like this forces them to think, oh, I know how I would say this if I'm talking about more than one person, if I'm talking about you and not you, because you can be referred to as informal or formal, and you, like the plural form of you. So that really prompted them to think a lot. And these are all the forms, and I would show them to them. And I'd ask them, how is this conjugation different from this one? And they would tell me, it would basically force them to think, which was always great. Here, I had a map activity, which I did with the students because I was trying to teach them about directions. And I found this different because I found that if they were to go to Paris, for example, they would most likely be receiving directions rather than giving them. So when they are talking about and giving directions, it's a completely different theory, and it works completely differently. So I found this off of a website, I admit, but I didn't think it was sufficient enough for what I wanted to do. So I found other images off of websites of, for example, a bank, a store, or a hospital, because those were vocabulary words, and I didn't want them to go unwasted. So I put all of that in because I was lucky enough to have Photoshop in the school. I don't have that at home. And what I did with the students is, for example, I placed a person right here on Main Street. I told them, you want to get to the airport, and you have to take a certain route. Tell me what it would take you to get to that route. So they would say, I was walking straight, I stopped at an intersection, and then I continued, then I turned right, and then I had to, for example, go to a bicycle, take a bicycle, cross the river, take a bridge here. So there were certain things that really made them think and talk about giving directions, which I found was very useful to them. And they also found that the map was funny. So that was